Hey friends, and welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls, a photographer and educator on a mission to help you find your passion, power, and purpose through entrepreneurship. So let's jump right into today's episode because this girl means business. Hey there, and welcome to episode 126 of the Girl Means Business podcast. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that is not really talked about a whole lot when it comes to starting out in business. I've recently talked to several kind of newbie business owners who are just starting out, and the same question is asked, which is, what are some of the things that you wish you had known before you started your business? And one of those things that I wish would be talked about more often is what it feels like to have the stress and the burnout that can come from building a business. Now, I've used this visual a couple times in the podcast, but I'm going to say it again because I think it's really, really powerful. And that is that idea that if you are constantly pushing forward, I want you to imagine that you are pushing a giant boulder down a road. And if all you're doing is leaning into that boulder and pushing forward with all of your might, you're eventually going to fall flat on your face. And that's what the burnout piece of your business is. It's that when you fall flat on your face and you feel like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's not a fun place to be. And if you've been in business for any amount of time, you know that feeling all too well. So today I have an amazing expert, Rhonda Berlino, on today. She is going to talk about the physical signs of burnout and stress and what it does to our body, but more importantly, how to recognize it. So that when you start to feel these ways, when you start to notice these signs in yourself, you can take the steps you need to take a step back, to refresh, to take a break. One of the best things you can do for your business if you're starting to feel that stress and that burnout coming on is take a break. That can mean you take a break from social media. It can mean you take a actual break from your business. You walk away for a couple of days, go on vacation, or maybe it just means taking a break for a couple of hours. Go outside, do something for yourself, take a lunch break. If you're constantly pushing forward, you are going to hit that burnout feeling way faster than if you are taking the time to give yourself mental and physical breaks from your business. I think we see a lot of talk online about the hustle and hitting putting your nose to the grindstone and hitting the pavement, doing all these things that feels like you have to be in this go, go, go mode all the time. But that's really not good for our bodies. It's not good for our minds, and it's not good for our business. So taking time to put in place some structures, put in place some habits that are going to help you to avoid stress and burnout is a really, really great piece of advice I wish I had heard earlier on in my business. But today, Rhonda's going to talk about a lot of those things. She is super knowledgeable about how the brain and the body works. She's got a really amazing story. And in the show notes, there are tons of extra resources that she's sharing with us to help you feel better about your business, about your health, and how to take care of yourself so that you don't get into a position where you are having these overwhelming signs of stress and burnout like she experienced in her life. All right, guys, let's get to my conversation with Rhonda, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, guys, welcome back to the Girl Means Business podcast. I'm here with Rhonda Berlino. She is a certified stress management coach. Rhonda, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. And I know that your audience has a lot of use for this particular topic. So I am ready to go to bring as much goodness as I can to help out. I get it.
Well, thank you. Well, I am excited to dive into this because it's definitely something that I have some experience with, the idea of burnout. You know, I've got 2 young children. It's summer break. It's a chaos around here. So before we dive into all that, I do want you to tell us a little bit about you, like who you are, what you do, and kind of your journey. How did you get into what you're doing today?
Okay. So I, like you said, certified stress management coach, also life coach, but I got that way because I kept burning out. And if someone had told me, by the way, oh, you're burned out, I would have socked them in the face probably, just like, whooped on them or something. Because to me, that meant, it just, when somebody says burnout, you can feel it. And it's like, I have nothing left to give. Like I'm exhausted, kind of that tiredness, right? And that is just not an option for me. I have a lot more to do. And if you look back on my life, I started to see this pattern, and I only saw it like the last time I had a meltdown. So first they were like, the first one started like when I was 13, and autoimmune issues, coming up with them too. And they are all substrates from stress, anxiety. And how does that happen as a child? Being a child is the hardest dang thing to do. Like under 10, if they feel like they don't belong, it equals death to them, right? So so almost out of the chute, they are learning to please. And we as women are learning to please and be the person that we think belongs to the group, right? So just like in caveman days, like if you get excommunicated, you are going to die. So that's kind of where it starts. Now, my story, my father had issues with alcohol. He was a violent alcoholic, and he sobered up when I was 30 and he was 50. And unlike many people, we got to heal a whole lot of things. So like one of the things that got me to this position now is that it was so hard. It was so hard, but even doing the hard thing was freeing. And every time I would get, up against a wall, and I know you guys, moms hit the wall more than most, right? So every time you get up a wall, you're like, oh my God, this is so hard, On the other side of that, there's like a breakthrough that says, I'm kind of a badass. Just saying, I got it. I went there. But really not understanding what burnout was a detriment to me. And so once I found myself in the emergency room, and it wasn't the first time. I had a job at corporate Fortune 250 company, and my title was a representative, right? So I was being the person everybody needed me to be. And that meant that I really didn't have a self necessarily. Myself inside was doing the things that I knew would get me the things that made me comfortable. Remember, I said that, okay? Because comfortable looks different to different people. And so there's just so many flavors of what people do in order to cope as they go through this life, right? And coping skills are not taught to anybody. Nobody teaches you how to be a human. They teach you how to be a good girl, a good mom, and they teach you by expectation. So, no stress, no pressure, like from the get-go, right? This is what it looks like. And you have the Pinterest-worthy parties, and you have all the things, and social media and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so for me, I didn't have to worry so much about social media or any of that. I was a mom, I have a child, and I came from. I got divorced, and so that was a big deal too. So single mom doing the thing, but burnout was every 10 years, and I would end up in the hospital. And not really understanding, because nobody had any reason. Like, why do you keep doubling over? First, it was like digestive system. Then it was like bronchial kind of situations, right? So I would learn that IBS had something to do with the way that I was stressing myself out. And I would learn what I could at the time, go to a therapist at the time, right? And see what might be, making a problem. And then when it got to something like anxiety, my bronchial tubes would just close. And it was like I would have, I couldn't breathe, which is, doesn't help you think and things.
Right.
It adds to a little bit of panic when you're like, okay, need to breathe now. This is an important thing. But all those things, each time I would learn what I could about that particular time. The last two times, were just 2 years apart. And what would happen this time was in my brain. So I would walk out the front door and forget where I was going. So it goes along with like when you're talking to someone, you wish your face was like flypaper so that the words could stick there just a little bit longer so you could process what they were saying and maybe remember it. And as a person who built businesses, I coached personal development and business development. I helped them get software to do these things, right? So remembering was really an important thing. And sitting in front of clients, thank heaven they ended up being like really close with me, like it was all relationship based work. And that was really what kept me going. But their life was always more important than mine. Always. So in a sense, even without children, my job continued to be the thing that was most important. I was a workaholic. Mm-hmm. And every time I would land in the hospital, they would say, you have to get your stress under control. And I would go, okay. So I would get the best planners. I would decide, okay, not going to do these marketing events. I'm going to do less and take care of myself more. Well, here's the problem with that. I really didn't know who I was. I mean, I knew my name, of course, but all of the years of doing the people pleasing and that kind of stuff kind of left me without any, I didn't even know. If you said self-care, I would go, I have no needs, especially with the upbringing that I had. As far as living with an alcoholic, I'll just say it because that's a coping thing, right? And it's also an illness. Mm-hmm. So to the degree that we can help as far as having alcohol be one of the things that, I'm all good with my glasses of wine. Trust me when I tell you. No shame in that game. But coming up with an alcoholic, a child learns to kind of try to make mom okay or dad okay, mm-hmm. right? And so the idea is to have no needs because the kid thinks it's about them. And they also think they can do something to fix it. And so what they do is deny themselves.
Right.
And so the constant good girl, being the productive one, the one that can be pretty and quiet and small. I am not quiet by any stretch. Never have been, never. And some of the things that my dad would say to me, I know, were just because I was, incessantly talking. And there were four of us, I know. So I was the talkative one. And so, for me, I learned to do without taking care of myself. And I thought I had it unlocked. Like the most important thing to me, I would find out in the emergency room was this workaholism, this being too busy to even have a self, even have 1 minute for yourself was a trauma response. So in my work, I look for patterns, and workaholism is an easy one for me to see, whether it's workaholism or I need to do and need to be isms, right? Mm-hmm. So constantly being busy because you just feel like you need to do. You just do. Like I would say to people, I'm not proving jack to anybody. But what I was doing is proving to myself that I could keep myself safe because it wasn't safe when I was young. And so something that your listeners really need to know is not everybody responds to stress the same way. So yeah. I respond to stress the way that I was as a child, like under 10, right? And then over 10 till I was 30. The world was wild and woolly. And I actually, I could go into so much in terms of like, I made it worse because I married somebody like my dad because I loved him anyway.
Yeah.
Right. That was my vision of love. That was just what men do. Or, I didn't know any different. And so when I went to have my own relationship, I got that in spades. So anyway.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you've been listening to the Girl Means Business podcast for any amount of time, then you know my love of email marketing runs deep. Not only is it a great way to generate new leads, but it's one of the most effective methods for nurturing warm leads and turning them into sales. Now, over the years, I've tested several email platforms, and my favorite by far is Flowdesk. Not only do they make email marketing simple and easy, even for the technically challenged, but they have everything you need to create stunning emails, capture leads, make sales, and automate the entire process, giving you time back in your busy day. And the cherry on top is you're only charged one flat fee no matter how many subscribers you have. So while other platforms will increase your price when you go over your pricing tier limit, Flowdesk has no price increases or hidden fees. If you're ready to give Flowdesk a try, click the link below in the show notes to save 50% off your first year. Let Flowdesk help you design emails people will love. Click the link below and check it out. I have a feeling you're going to love it just as much as I do.
May 2019 was the last time I said, I don't understand. Why am I so bad to myself? Why am I so hard on myself? And I am damn smart. I'm really smart. I've made it to this age. And it's an age. Like I was like 62. And they're like, you're having a heart attack. That's the way it goes. You're on the way to and I was like, no, I have one more meeting. One more meeting. I'll be okay. And they're like, you cannot get in that car. I'm like, no, I'll be okay. So, I drove myself to the emergency room and then sat in that is where, when you're in that kind of anxiety and that fight or flight all the time, your prefrontal cortex, the executive decision-making machine, is really not there. It's just kind of gone away so you could run, right? That's how we're designed. Mm-hmm. So I was in the parking lot in my car in the hospital, at the hospital. And I thought, okay, this is a little dramatic, Rhonda. Don't you think? A little dramatic. You're going to be okay. Because the minute I started to do something, my body started to trust me about it. Okay, good. Right. I had no idea how to listen to my body, because really what had worked for me prior was not listening. Like you did in labor, you kind of cut everything from the neck. You just like, I'm all right here, right up here in my brain. And this is where I am. Everything going on from the neck down, we do not pay attention to unless they tell us we have to, right? So that is a dangerous and a sign that really doesn't serve us. It really doesn't. There's so much intellect inside. It's ridiculous. And I'll get into that in a second. But anyway, so I call a girlfriend, right? Like phone a friend. I'm in the parking lot at the hospital. I'm going to phone a friend. And she's like, Rhonda, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I was not feeling very good. And everybody was like on me about getting to the hospital, and they were going to call the ambulance. And, I decided that was like a little dramatic. So I drove myself to the hospital, and then I was just kind of thinking it was all dramatic. And she's like, I can hear in your voice you're not breathing. And I'm like, well, I kind of can't breathe very much. Like taking the inhale was just like impossible. It felt like there was an elephant on my chest. And truly, there were sharp pains going up both arms. What did I know? When you get into a stress, like it's an anxiety attack. That's what they told me it was, but when you get in that situation, there's so much inflammation going on in your body, everything hurts. So the minute you start with the adrenaline and stuff, my head starts to swim, and I'm like, oh, blah, what's happening? And people could see it. Anyway, so at the hospital, in the parking lot, my friend said, I'm hanging up right now. And if you're not in the hospital, call me from inside the hospital. All right. So at least I wasn't being too dramatic, So anyway, the bottom line of being in the hospital was they said, we checked your cortisol levels. That means they checked my heart and all kinds of stuff like they're supposed to do, right? And they just said, we'll keep you overnight. But we think you should go see a cardiologist because your heart looks strong. But, they have better testing kind of circumstances. And we think you should go see a cardiologist like tomorrow. So call them and get that done. But your cortisol levels are to the roof. And cortisol is like the stress hormone. I mean, there are so many stress hormones, hormones involved in that, in the stress response. But I didn't realize that I had been running all that time to keep myself safe and never, ever feeling like I could stop. And I think so many people can relate to that. It's not like I'm afraid somebody's going to tell me I'm a bad mom, because I've already said that to myself. You suck. You're working too much. You're this, you're that. You're late. You always have too much going on. Party doesn't start till I get there. That kind of thing. So that was just kind of how things were. So it was really more about proving to myself that I'm okay than it was proving to anybody else. So we get to the cardiologist, and it's a month of tests because they're concerned about things that they see. And so they do all these tests. And at the end of it, he calls me in this 30 days. And I am totally still, because what they're afraid of is that there's a hole in my heart. And so that the blood is going through one way and it's going into the wrong quarter of the heart, so that if there's a clot in there, it will kill me instantly. So no drama, just saying. They just thought maybe that was the deal. Anyway, so I'm being very, very calm in these 30 days. And I am taking care of myself. I took leave from work. It was a big deal for me to take leave from work. They had to take over all the stuff that I was doing. They were like, "You're crazy. What are you doing all this stuff?" Anyway. So at the end of the cardiology appointment where he had all the tests, he said, "Rhonda, look at your heart." I don't think I'll ever forget this. He's like, "Look at your heart. Look at this. It's perfect. It's strong, right? And for your age, it's really good. See, look at under stress. This is what it does." And, it was perfect. The beats were perfect. Everything was fine. But of course I'm just laying on a machine. I'm not doing anything else.
Right.
Or under a stress, induced stress kind of circumstance, not at work. But anyway, he said, if you don't stop putting yourself under this kind of stress, this won't last. Okay. Because, and he showed me what would happen to the arteries and to the, all this, what stress does, and, putting proteins in places where they shouldn't be. And really, he equated it to you've just had your pedal to the metal the entire time. It'd be like NASCAR, man, just pedal to the metal and no pit stops. You're trying to just crash. And I'm like, wow, it was totally self-destructive. And I thought, oh man. And I mean, really, I was trying. I had tried to do everything I knew to reduce the things I have to do. And as a mom, they come first. They didn't ask to be here, right? So, and it's a tough spot. And you find yourself not taking care of yourself, right? And then maybe a little resentful and maybe a little freaking angry at times. Just you can let this whole thing burn. I don't care, right? So what he said to me was, I can't help you. You have to help yourself. And I'm like, okay, I never want anyone else to ever have to hear that, because we all know the person that got you into this mess, that would be me. It's not the same person that's going to get you out of that mess, except there was nobody else for me to call. It felt like therapy would take way too long because I've done that route before. Right. And so what I really did was I decided to look into stress management. if you can't do, teach, and then you learn a little bit, right? So that's really how I ended up with my stress management certification, because I wanted to know what is happening. Because how do you know? How do you know if what you're doing is helping or hurting you in those circumstances, right? You just don't know. So what I found out about burnout, I think, is something that's really going to be enlightening to people, because it definitely was to me. And I will give you a reference of books and things where they can get a lot more information, so we don't go over time. But really, studies of burnout started maybe 5 years ago. Okay, so this was 4 years ago for me. So they were just like starting to wonder, like, what is this thing we have now? More recently, now they're looking at the helping fields, obviously caretaking, because the baby boomer generation is getting older now, and they're having to take care of their parents. And so caretaking is a big deal. But with the pandemic too, now the medical community is just, it's a lot. And when I tell you these two things, one about emotions and the other about what burnout really is, it is emotional exhaustion. Burnout is emotional exhaustion. And what they say is there are 3 parts of it. One is just caring too much for too long. Now remember that it's an emotional kind of circumstance. And so can you not push yourself really hard? But when you get to a place where your emotions, like you're just gutted, you're just like, that's hard. That's like, what do you do? Right? So that part was the hardest part for me when I realized it, because then I was like, oh yeah, I am. I'm so tired of being tired. And that's the next part. Depersonalization. That means you stop being empathetic. You stop being compassionate because you're numb. So if you're picking up what I'm putting down here, that means I'm so emotional, like I care so much, I try so hard until I just feel numb. And the third part is really that you are not accomplishing anything, right? That sense of a lack of accomplishment, which means no matter how hard I try, no matter what I do, it does not impact the outcome, right? So there are so many things all wrapped up into that have such freedom for people to understand. Because the one thing is like emotions are clear and present. Takes a second, right? It only takes one emotion to put you into fight or flight. And then you can run, but you can't in fight or flight. You don't have the facilities to really think yourself out of that paper bag. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. You could fight yourself out of it because that's what it's for, right? But learning to harness that means being really aware of certain things. And the first thing is emotions are like a tunnel. So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so the emotion beginning is like, obviously we feel this emotion, right? And we can react right now. Okay, right now. That would be the middle part, the messy middle. All right, that would be like trying to figure it out, right? So if you are in a place like I was, always in fight or flight, you still are not thinking with all you've got. The emotion and the exhaustion is real. You're just like, I'm too tired to think. This is just the way it is. Too tired to think. And in not just work, in a household every single day, trying to be all the things all the time, it's pretty easy to see yourself in the middle of that tunnel. Yeah. Because what the completion thing is the really important part. So completing an emotion, so you understand emotional exhaustion means you're stuck in the middle of emotions and a bunch of them, right? So one of the things that I learned about getting to the to the end of the emotion. The only thing I really knew how to do until my brain kind of came back after I wasn't so symptomatic was work out. Because almost you could dance it out. You can punch a punching bag. You can throw children. You can, but moving is really important because it actually speaks to your body. Now imagine you feel emotion, right? So it's in your body, right? So the thing that works it out is speaking to your body in a way that says, I got this. Yeah. And that means, let me help you work this out. So I think it saved me for years that I had to look a certain way because I did that like an obnoxious person too, like working out, but it probably saved me because I had no idea, right? So there's a book called Burnout that I recommend, and I will give you the link for the show notes, but it's two sisters, twin sisters, and they're both doctors. It's an amazing journey through how we get so tired that we become numb and hopeless. That's kind of a sad statement.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey photographers, are you ready to make 2024 your best year yet? Growing a business is tough. You're following all the successful photographers and experts, soaking up their best advice and downloading all their free guides, trying to replicate their success only to come up lacking, blaming yourself when their methods don't work for you. But the truth is, it isn't you. Free content and one-size-fits-all courses can only get you so far. What you need is personalized help and guidance, but that can get expensive. Well, not anymore. I've created the perfect solution to get you personalized results for less than $2 a day. Introducing the Focus Photographer Lab, a one-of-a-kind coaching membership that gets you one-on-one results for a fraction of the cost of traditional coaching. Inside the lab, you'll find the 3 C's to success: classes, coaching, and community. With classes, you gain access to a treasure trove of pre-recorded trainings and invaluable resources. With coaching, you get monthly live trainings and Q&A sessions, along with my favorite part, the weekly one-on-one office hours, where we get to address your unique questions and challenges. And then there's the community, where you get to connect with an amazing group of talented female photographers who share your passion, supporting each other and inspiring each other to greatness. The best part is it doesn't come with an expensive one-on-one coaching price tag. You get all of that for just $47 a month. You can even try it for free for 14 days to make sure it's a good fit for you. And there is no contract and no obligation. You can cancel at any time. So what are you waiting for? Head down to the show notes and click the link to learn more and get signed up today. And let's make 2024 our best year yet.
But really, the deal is,
I think a lot of women understand that feeling, like going through and listening to everything you've said, like there's an extreme side of it that you've experienced, the physical and all that kind of stuff. And all of that may feel very, extreme for a lot of people. They're like, oh, well, I haven't experienced that. I've never ended up in the hospital. I've never had anxiety attacks, but that doesn't mean that the burnout feeling isn't there. I mean, even just for me yesterday, I had that feeling for me where it comes up as I feel overwhelmed to the point that I don't even know where to begin on something. And I feel like I don't have it in me. Like I don't have the mental capacity to do anything else today. Like I can't make my brain function in a way that it needs to function. Like perfect example is yesterday, I'm trying to get ready to go on vacation with the family. So I'm trying to plan ahead. Like, we're leaving after this weekend and I'm trying to plan ahead so that we have like everything for the next 2 weeks in my business and home life is done, taken care of. I don't have to think about it. But that means I have to do 3 weeks worth of work in 1 week. And it came down to one day or like yesterday. And I was like, okay, here's my to-do list. Here's all the things I need to get done. And I was just physically and mentally exhausted from the last, however long with having kids home for the summer and just business and life. And you kind of hit this wall and all of a sudden you feel like you're like, nope, I'm going to lay in bed and watch Netflix instead. And because my brain cannot wrap itself around the fact that I need to get 3 podcast episodes up and ready to go, that I need to get all of these emails taken care of, that I need to get all of this content created. Like it just physically would not compute. It was like when you're that wheel of death on a computer screen. That's what my brain felt like.
Right there. Till the battery goes out, right?
Yep, exactly. So I think for anyone listening, like it doesn't always look like, like what Rhonda experienced with, the extreme, the physical aspects of it. It's the mental and the emotional too. And I think a lot of moms in particular can relate to that. And the fact that you mentioned something earlier about, being what everyone else wants you to be. That equals burnout because, I have 2 daughters and I think about this a lot about like how I was raised and what my life looked like and how I turned out. And I'm like, you know what? I spent a majority of my life focused on what everybody else thought I should do, what everybody else expected of me, what everybody else wanted to see from me. Absolutely. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I was like, screw that. Like, what is it that I want to do? Like that scene in the Notebook is like, what do you want? Yes. And I think that it's helped a lot because I know that like I had burnout big time a lot faster. I had like more incidents of it when I was younger, and now it's a little more few and far between. And I know that a lot of it's because now when I feel burnout, it's the expectations I put on myself, not the ones that I'm putting, that other people are putting on me. Yeah.
There's another really interesting concept there too. When you are trying to be somebody, not trying to be, when you have assumed the position of that person who has no needs and all that, it's almost like, even if somebody tells you you're doing a great job, like you're perfect, you're everything, you don't take it in because they're like, tell me, listeners are saying right now, if they only knew, right?
Yeah.
I'm putting up this face and all that. And people are going, you're amazing. You got all that down. You're so good. And you're like, yeah. Nuts.
That imposter syndrome starts to creep in too.
Truly. Yeah. And I mean, that feels really bad. So it is, I'm going to say, I call them stress fractures. So what you experienced just now is your body talking to you. Your body's saying, you're right. You are right. You have done enough. And the rest of it's going to have to wait. And you'll be fine. It'll be okay. Mm-hmm. So maybe it won't be perfect, but it'll be good. Right? So perfect is boring because you are done. Okay. So I don't know about you, but when somebody tells me I have limits, I hate it. I freaking hate it. I don't even know why. What am I supposed to be? Superwoman? I mean, I really don't have any idea what the deal is, but I hate when somebody tells me you're done. The first thing that comes to my mind is, oh no, I'm not. I don't know why. It's like a little fighter kind of person.
Yeah.
No, I still have something to say.
But that anyway. Serves you in some way. Like, I think all of those are in us for a reason, and especially coming from like working with entrepreneurs, you need to have that. Because if you don't, you're just going to be like, oh, okay, well, I hit a roadblock, so I'm just going to be done now. Or, oh, somebody said I can't do it, so I guess I can't do it. We all have that voice inside of us, a different level of that voice, I have it to a certain degree. You have it to a certain degree. Other people listening have it to a certain degree, but that's what fires us. That's what pushes us to keep going. It's not all bad. It's not all bad.
Exactly. So, I mean, the stress response saves us, right? It actually motivates us as well. So the difference, this is the little line that you don't cross, right? To me, don't cross that. I have signals. I know what this feels like. If I can't quite think, I know I'm in fight or flight. That means there's chemistry that's going into my body that's going to hurt me first and not going to serve me in the outcome, right? There's chemistry that's going in there that makes me just want to bounce, right? Just get out of it, right? So the confusion comes in, and that's like a little mask thing that goes, yeah, you just can't think. Truly, your executive function is gone. So I know I'm in fight or flight when that comes, right? When you are in the stress response for an extended period of time, like even day after day after day, it's called toxic stress. And kids can get hurt from the moms being in toxic stress. This is a bigger topic that we can get into, but honestly, the CDC and Kaiser Permanente did a test on children, adverse childhood experiences that happened to kids under 17. And really, it's about the toxic chemistry for developing brains, right? So their developing brains change the shape in the area where impulsivity, learning disabilities, and addiction come in, right? So for the future, so that's my mission. My mission is moms know. Moms need to know, okay, the line in the sand here is, if this is continually happening every day, we figure it out. We look at the stress fractures, because the last thing we want to do, oh man, we're looking at every single label. We're making sure they have the best schools and all the things, right? And we sure the heck don't want to hurt them unknowingly. I didn't know that. I didn't know it until probably 3 years ago. So I'm on my little soapbox here, but the reality for kids is that can be reversed in a case where, like, the pandemic just happened. That's day to day to day for a year. That's trauma. Okay. That's toxic stress. Brains will change if we don't get some resilience built. And there's a test that, I love this one, done by little mice and their mice pups that I think they're called pups. Yeah. Anyway, so heavy liquor moms are the nurturing moms, and the not heavy liquor moms are really kind of the neglectful ones, right? So they did this test because a lot of tests are done on mice, right? They test all kinds of things. They clamp their little tiny hands, right? And then they test their cortisol, so they know they're stressed out to the moon, right? Stressed out. They test their cortisol levels. What they found out was that that marked their DNA. So it marks them. And if you don't reverse that, because it can be reversed, then that DNA gets passed on to the next generation. You don't even know it. So the way I deal with stress was the way my dad dealt with stress, and his dad was an alcoholic, right? So you get it. So the thing is, oh man, so we can reverse it. And this test with the mice pups, the heavy liquor mom. So they took the group of pups that were being tested, and they split them in two, right? So they all had the markings on their DNA, right? So these are biomarkers, epigenetics on top of the DNA. Put them with the two moms. The heavy liquor mom, the one that built the resilience for the babies, those marks came off the DNA. The neglectful mom, the marks are still on there, right? So then so there's a way that, like, doctors now know, like pediatricians know at this point, that any of the kids under 17 at this point are going to have something to deal with. So when they look at how they are when you take them to the doctor, they're going to look at the ways that stress hormones have impacted their organs, because in your nervous system, like, your nervous system runs the show, right? My nervous system had so many things telling me I wasn't safe, that I was just constantly running. And so the thing is, down your back, from your brain, down your back, it attaches to every single organ you have. So that explains my irritable bowel kind of thing, right, at one point. And then when it got really bad, my lungs, and then my heart, right? The pressure that I felt in my heart, right? And extra weight, all kinds of things. But so they know these things now. The reality is, this is not the way that we should live our life. The world has evolved faster than humanity is evolved, than our nervous systems evolved. And in my programs and in my coaching, I make sure that my clients understand what's going on in their nervous system, like when they're keyed. Because, like, when something happens, I'll give you an example. My house burned when I was young. And at the time, your brain says, okay, this is bad. And it marks the smell, the sight, the feeling that I had, marks it all up, right? And those are trauma responses, right? So now I could go into, am I safe? Just smelling smoke.
Yeah.
Right. Just smelling it.
That trigger.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So there's ways to get around it. And it's not appropriate now for us at this point in our society for us to not pay attention to that, because on top of like this pandemic kind of thing, we already feel like we have to do and be all the things.
Yeah.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
And I know how important it is to be a mom. And I bet all of your listeners are going, oh man, okay. Because that's like, when I heard it, I mean, I have a nephew that died at 23 from an addiction, right? My son has a tumor in his brain in that place where, in the HPA axis, which is right where all the stress hormones go. Right. And one of my nieces is also incarcerated from an addiction issue. In our family, our parents didn't know all of that, but we know it now.
Yeah.
So we can stop.
When you know better, you do better.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's exactly how I did it too. So I got no judgment on that one.
Yeah.
So I mean, understanding your mindset, even your mindset can throw you into fight or flight. Burnout is a message from your body. It is saying, it is you time. Mm-hmm. It is time for you to take care of you. So that doesn't mean stop and, like I did. By the time I ended up taking care of me, I couldn't think anymore. I mean, that's terrible because then it's impacting your hippocampus inside your brain, which is the thing that, where Alzheimer's and dementia and that kind of stuff comes from. Scared me to death. So, yeah. So it's pretty important. So, listening to your body is the main thing I can say. It's important. It's on your side. So stress fractures, like you felt the other day, mm-hmm. that feeling like you were just fried, that's like the crack where the light gets in. Your body is saying, look here, just look here. Mm-hmm. And I know people are nervous, especially if you have like a background like mine, I have to unravel all of that stuff. It's not like that. Your body's been protecting you from things like trauma response of being really, really, really busy is a response that's keeping you from thinking about the things or dealing with the things that your body thinks you can't do.
Yeah.
Right. It thinks it'll be too much for you. So just a few things, in terms of production, all of your ladies that are trying to do so much, anxiety is the number one killer of productivity. Okay. So here's the thing. You first. One of the things,
the airplane thing, like put your mask on before you help others. It's true. It's so true. Like you have to take care of you. And I think about this with my business all the time as I think, okay, oh my gosh, I did not send out that email I needed to send, or I did not complete that project I needed to complete. And I start to get that anxiety. I'm like, oh, I'm failing at this. And then I realize, you know what? No, it's okay. I am going to step back because I can't be the business owner. I can't be the business coach. I can't be the whatever for these people, these clients of mine, if I'm not that for myself, if I'm not taking care of myself.
So true.
Yeah. So I think that I always kind of go back to that whole, put your oxygen mask on first before you put on someone else's, because and even with parenting, you have to be, you're not a good parent if you're not healthy yourself. So you have to be emotionally, physically, mentally healthy, or it's not the best. You're not parenting from the best place. You're not being a good spouse from the best place. You're not being a business owner from the best place. You have to have those. And I like what you said too about like knowing your markers, like knowing the triggers. That's something I've in the past couple of years have started to pay attention to. Is I Well, I know now when I do have those feelings, when my brain feels like it's on that, circle of death, spinning and spinning and spinning, that's when I know. I'm like, you know what? No, tonight I have to turn the laptop off. I have to disconnect. I'm going to turn off social media. I'm going to put my phone away. I will, take my Apple Watch off and put it somewhere so I don't get notifications. I have to physically do these things so that I can mentally reset. But I know that about myself now. And I still have nights or days where I'm like, no, I can just push through. I'll push through. I'll get it done. And it always ends up badly. And so learning to listen and look for those, like you said, the stress factors, knowing that it's coming and how you can prevent it before it happens.
What is really crazy to me is I was worried about that because I had these are not just things I felt like I needed to do. I mean, my heart was in them. In terms of the clients that I served, I knew I could make a difference in their bottom line, and it mattered to their family, right? It mattered. And so it was like, well, what do I choose? Well, how am I going to do that? And the reality was, when I am better, you slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
Get your brain on your side. You get your body on your side. And biohacking's I absolutely love brain health stuff. Truly, if something's not working in your life, there's a possibility something's off in your head. And you know what that could be? As simple as your brain is 70% water. So if you're not drinking your water, you're feeling foggy, you can't do the thing, and you think you're pushing through and getting the thing done. And it doesn't work like that, right? Sleep. Seriously, I used to say this. People will quote me, which is so handy. I'm like, okay, guilty. I get it. But I used to say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I have a serious zest for life. I'm grateful, I can, crazy. And I always felt like if I have this opportunity to do something, well, then I have to do it. And that is not true. And when you sleep, trauma can heal in sleep. And REM, that's kind of like the EMDR. If you've had any trauma in your life, that's like the fix. Wow, it just got dark outside. Sorry. Anyway, the EMDR, the rapid eye movement stuff, while you're sleeping in a certain stage of sleep, you heal trauma. You also have over 700 health promoting genes that turn on when you sleep. Your brain gets reset, right? Your entire body, like a computer even, right? Mm-hmm. It restarts. It needs that so much. So for me, for the longest time, I didn't set an alarm. Excuse me. I purposely went to bed earlier so that I could still get up and do my job and do the things, but I wanted to wake up without an alarm, normally, right?
Naturally. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, the other thing was and this is kind of a new trend too. I was ahead of the trend on this one. Not that I'm bragging or anything, but I would stay up late because I needed some time to myself. My husband would go to bed.
Yep.
Right. And what would I do? A glass or two of wine, shopping on Amazon, or binge watching some nonsense. I don't know. I don't know. It was just a time that I needed for me. And sleep was so much better for coping. But when you realize you can put your mask on first and do the things you want to do, it's a reorganizing of things that really is helpful. And it's also creating a self, allowing yourself to have needs, because your body is set up to do a thing. And if you're working in your purpose, like so many entrepreneurs are, I think the world needs more of us. If you're working in your purpose, your body is set up to do that. And so if you start listening to your body and start giving it what it needs and saying, hell yes, that's what I need, there's genius at work here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Well, Rhonda, this has been so interesting. And I love how passionate you are about learning the science behind all this, because that's something that I've always thought was so interesting, is it's not just that the surface level is good to know. It's good to know, like, okay, these are the things that we need to be looking out for. These are the things we need to be watching out for. But the why behind it, and this is, I go into this a lot with like my coaching clients, and, is the why behind why you do what you do in your business and why you are invested in these things. And the why behind your body is responding in a certain way, I think is so powerful.
Yep.
And I've learned, just listening to you, I've learned a lot about like, the stress factors and how it affects different things in our lives. And like the fact that, you're passing this on through your genes to your children and how things like that. That's been so fascinating. So just for the sake of time, we are going to wrap up, but I would love for you to share where people can find you, how they can learn more about, the things you're talking about, how they can get in touch with you if they want to. Where can we go to get more of Rhonda?
More of me. So theundeniablebrand.com. So I named my brand the Undeniable Brand because there is that thing that only you have. I believe we're here on purpose. And that undeniable thing is the reason that we are so motivated. Like when you're in your purpose, you're like, I will not be denied. I will not be. So that's,
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, the undeniablebrand.com. Yeah, I totally wondered, why am I so driven at this? Why is it? Yeah. So, and there's definitely a way to learn about it. And I think it's so important. Women too, for you moms out there and for you, Kendra. When you become a mom, I think there's a place where you go, this is a life. This is a life that I want. I want my family. I want my relationships. I want my career. And nobody told me that would mean that I would lose myself. And if you don't pay attention to yourself, that's exactly what happens. And that's a tragedy. Because what's undeniable is exactly that. The world needs you.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
The kids need you and you need you. And life will be better when you are fully in it, without question. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you, Rhonda. This has been amazing. I've loved chatting with you. Thank you so much for all of your insights and expertise. And I can't wait to speak with you again in the future.
All right. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. And as always, you can find any links or resources mentioned in today's show down in the show notes. And if we're not friends outside the podcast yet, then what are you waiting for? Come find me on Instagram at Girl Means Business. Send me a DM letting me know what you thought of today's episode or any of the past episodes you've listened to. You can also take a screenshot of today's episode and post it to your stories, tagging at Girl Means Business, and I'll give you a shout out on my page. I love connecting with you and hearing all about your business and can't wait to get to know you more. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will meet you back here next week, same time, same place.